Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into this. If you're operating in today's digital landscape, well, you already know firsthand that we are living in a VUCA world, one that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. In this environment of just constant disruption and digital chaos, traditional risk management often feels kind of like trying to stop the tide with a bucket. So today, we're exploring a really brilliant conceptual shift derived from the Digital Value Management System, or DVMS. We're going to see how to actually build a behavioral engine, a dynamic system that doesn't just manage risk, but literally transforms it into the raw material for organizational resilience.
Here's a super quick roadmap of where we're headed. 1. Rethinking risk in VUCA. 2. The DVMS system unveiled. 3. The governance overlay. 4. Building a behavioral engine. 5. A system of continuous learning. And finally, 6. Converting risk into resilience.
All right, Section 1, Rethinking Risk in VUCA, moving beyond the checklist. To really get started here, we have to ground ourselves in the reality of our current high-stakes environment.
I want you to ask yourself this really pivotal question right now. Because, traditional models treat risk like this terrifying monster that just has to be eliminated or hidden away. But what if we completely flip that paradigm? What if risk isn't a threat to be feared, but the exact raw material we need to continually produce and forge our organization's resilience? There is a massive contrast we need to talk about here. On one side, you have static control systems. And let's be honest, we've all felt the pain of this. The prescriptive checklists, those reactive risk registers where threats just get listed long after the damage is already done, and totally fragmented oversight. It's exhausting, right? But on the other side, you have living behavioral engines. This is exactly what we need to navigate modern operational risk. It's all about continuous sensing, creating adaptive feedback loops, and proactively protecting value. It's really the difference between a dead document and a living, breathing system.
Moving on to Section 2, the DVMS system unveiled, the architecture of resilience. Let's actually unpack this master blueprint.
So, the DVMS redefines operational performance through 3 integrated capabilities. First, you have the governance overlay, which replaces those fragmented silos with unity. Second, you have the behavioral engine, and that drives high-trust, high-velocity decision-making. And anchoring the whole thing is the learning system, which basically makes your organizational culture a measurable and adaptable asset. Think of these as 3 massive gears turning together as a unified system of execution and adaptation.
Now, before we break down those gears, we need to define a really foundational concept called strategy risk. The crucial point here is this. In traditional models, strategy is usually sprinting way ahead, and risk managers are stuck running behind with a broom trying to sweep up the mess, right? Well, the DVMS reverses this entirely. Strategy and risk are viewed as a single, inseparable entity. Risk analysis should actually lead strategic insight. It acts as a proactive driver of value creation, not just some trailing reaction.
And this strategy risk mindset is operationalized through what's called the Create, Protect, Deliver, or CPD model. You can think of this as the journey of digital value. Step 1, you create and design that value. Step 2, you protect it by embedding real-time assurance. Because let's face it, unprotected value is ultimately unsustainable value. And step 3, you deliver it, executing and sending all that data right back into the loop. By doing these things concurrently, the organization seamlessly metabolizes risk at the exact same time value is being built.
Section 3, the governance overlay, the steering and nervous system. Okay, let's zoom in on that very first gear.
Notice we call it an overlay, not a department. The DVMS actually builds this overlay directly on the foundation of the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. If you're familiar, NIST introduced a 6th core function, govern. This puts governance smack in the center, informing how an organization identifies, protects, detects, responds, and recovers. The DVMS takes this concept and turns it into a dynamic fabric. It ensures your strategic intent is actually translated into operational reality across every single domain.
And the way that nervous system actually functions is through the govern-assure loop. Governance sets the expectations, sure, but assurance is the connective tissue. Assurance measures conformance, it validates performance, and most importantly, it bridges strategy and execution. It literally transforms the concept of an audit from this dreaded retroactive inspection into a real-time capability that senses any misalignment and immediately triggers an adaptive response so you can maintain trust.
So how does this actually build out in practice? Well, you don't just flip a switch to get this overlay. You build it through the fast-track phases. You start by initiating baselines. Then you move into basic hygiene to just stabilize those daily workflows.
Next, you expand that governance coverage outward to your supply chain and partners. And finally, you innovate by fully embedding this governance right into your culture. It is a super pragmatic step-by-step evolution from merely surviving chaos to genuinely thriving in it.
Which brings us to Section 4, Building a Behavioral Engine, Combustion and Fuel. Let's shift our focus to the mechanics of the engine itself.
We have to bring in the most critical element here, human behavior. I absolutely love this metaphor from the source text. Culture is the fuel, assurance is the combustion. If you want real resilience, you can't just rely on technology. It all comes down to the collective beliefs and attitudes of your people. Assurance is the spark that takes the energy from risk events and burns that cultural fuel into a really sound, unified operational output.
But hey, culture usually feels like a really vague, fluffy concept, right? Well, the DVMS solves this by making culture measurable. By using tools like the cultural web and 3D knowledge models, leaders are handed tangible levers. You can actually observe symbols, power structures, and rituals, turning culture into a managed asset. This means leaders can actively adjust behavioral patterns, vastly reducing friction and steering their teams far away from those toxic blame-based cultures.
To put that culture into motion, the engine runs on 7 minimum viable capabilities, or MVCs. We've got govern, assure, plan, design, change, execute, and innovate. This right here is pure systems thinking. It's the mechanical blueprint where each capability continuously fuels the next one down the line. Governance sets the intent, assurance verifies it, planning and design translate it, change and execute operationalize it, and innovation ensures it just keeps improving. It is a perpetual, non-stop cycle of adaptation.
Section 5, a system of continuous learning, the regenerative cycle. This brings us to the final, and honestly, perhaps the most vital gear. Because if your organization isn't evolving faster than market shifts or cyber threats, you're already falling behind. Learning requires feedback, and feedback requires measurement. The DVMS utilizes dynamic measurement methods like goal, question, metric, and question, outcome, question, metric. I know, that's a whole lot of alphabet soup right there, but the concept is just brilliant. Instead of passive reporting, these loops force teams to ask the exact right questions and tie clear goals to observable outcomes in real time. You are literally quantifying your organization's learning velocity, embedding real-time evidence right into daily decision-making.
And that learning leads directly to innovation through a regenerative cycle. You actually progress through levels, starting from level 1, incremental innovation with minor iterative improvements, to sustaining, up to adaptive, where actual policy and behavior changes, all the way to disruptive, resulting in strategic, systemic transformation. Because the whole point of the DVMS is that you don't just return to your previous state after a disruption, you bounce forward and emerge significantly stronger.
Section 6, converting risk into resilience, thriving on the edge of chaos. Okay, let's bring all of this together. We've built the overlay, the engine, and the learning system. This is what a fully built resilient enterprise actually looks like. Strategy and risk operate as one single unit. Governance and assurance act as a living, breathing nervous system. The culture becomes completely self-correcting, and operations learn continuously without ever losing their direction. It creates this amazing behavioral cascade of accountability that makes critical learning sticky from the very top in the boardroom all the way down to the frontline workers.
Which leaves us with this incredibly powerful thought from the authors. Resilience is not the absence of risk, but the mastery of response. Through the DVMS behavioral engine, we aren't trying to paralyze the organization by dodging every possible threat. No way. We are capturing the friction and the energy of uncertainty, and we are actively harnessing it to drive sustained, adaptive performance.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder today. Given the wild, volatile world we live in, how will your organization metabolize its next disruption? Will it be a chaotic panic, or will your new behavioral engine convert it into your next great advantage? Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and keep learning.